Stars in the spotlight, secrets in the night. Headlines take flight, we're the keepers of the light. The talk of shame, we know the name. Fame's the game, join the flame.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Talk of Shame, where we discuss all things pop culture, entertainment, celebrity. We do deep dives, we spill some hot tea, and of course, we kiki just about any and everything that is trending. So make sure you are following me here. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and that way you'll be able to interact and chat with me throughout this live. Look, we have to talk about Chimp Crazy. I haven't stopped thinking about it since the finale, which was on Sunday night on Max, even though I like to call it HBO still, HBO Max on Max. Because we need to talk about Tanya. I mean, let me just say first off that I mean, does this picture not belong in the Louvre? I mean, the ending of the finale with Tanya in a bikini holding the "Don't tread on me" flag. I mean, it's rich. But really, I want to talk about, because since the finale has aired, obviously there's been a lot of interviews. Eric Goode, the director, he did Tiger King. Now he's the one who did Chimp Crazy. He has done some interviews, and Tanya has done some interviews as well. And look, let me start by saying that, I do not for a second believe that Tanya is innocent in this. And when I say, who's wrong, she has absolutely done a lot of wrong things, and she is part of what is wrong. But I feel like there were also other people that were wrong in this situation. And I also, I do not believe in the exotic brokering animal trade business. I think it's highly unregulated, and I think it's unnecessary. There's no reason that animals should be in captivity. Humans should be owning them. They should be allowed to be free. I don't even like going to zoos, to be honest. But I do think, because there has been no regulation up into this point, there are some animals that have been raised by humans, and they have been in captivity. We can't just release them. And we know that there's safe conservancies and places where they can go. But, I think that we need to tackle the problem in many ways. And I just felt like, after watching that finale, I do feel like a lot of this was put on Tanya, and it just felt like there were other people, that were to blame. Let me start by saying, when it comes to Jared Goodman, who was the lawyer for PETA, Brittany Pete, who I think was also a lawyer, she works for PETA, and Alan Cumming. Alan Cumming is the most innocent in this, innocent in this whole thing. He was the only one who I felt like was going, towards this with the right reason. It wasn't self-serving. He worked with Tonka the chimp on this movie Buddy, I think back in the 90s, and he legitimately thought that Tonka had retired, was living on some nice sanctuary this entire time, until PETA got involved. And that is when he learned, no, Tonka was living in captivity and, what looked like deplorable conditions. And so, of course, then he became an activist. There was a reward towards finding Tonka when Tanya, claimed he had died, and PETA was like, we don't believe he's dead. So Alan is the innocent one. He was really wanting to go at this for all the right reasons. And look, even when it comes to Jared and Brittany, at the end of the day, they were just doing their job, right? They worked for PETA, and they were just doing their job. I mean, were they annoying? Yeah, they weren't, they didn't look great on camera. They looked like, they were going after this woman who really didn't have any money, and they had sort of all the resources and backing behind them. But in this situation, I feel like these three people, again, PETA, the two lawyers for PETA were doing their job. Alan was, legitimately wanting to make sure Tonka, who he loved, he admitted he fell in love with this chimp, and just wanted to make sure he was doing good. I think it's when it comes down to the director, Eric Goode, and Dwayne Cunningham. So, again, and I love this. This is the shot of Eric right after Dwayne had called Tanya to basically apologize for being a narc. He was the one that snitched her out. And for some reason, Tanya decides to say, have you looked into Eric Goode? Do you even know anything about him? His mom was basically a prostitute in trash. And this was Eric's look after she said that. He's like, what? I mean, of course, I immediately Googled afterwards. And I'm pretty sure his mom was a conservationist. That's the only thing. She's unfortunately looks like she's passed away. I found an obituary. I can show you that. But I don't know where Tanya got that his mom was a prostitute. That is not at all what is online. It said she was a conservationist. But I do think that, the two of them sort of played a part in sort of not being the good guys. Look, I think Dwayne, I feel the worst for, because essentially Eric knew that nobody in the exotic animal world was going to speak to him after Tiger King came out, and what happened with Joe Exotic and all of that. So Eric knew that, when he was going into this chimpanzee world, he would have to find someone else to make friendships with these people. And Dwayne Cunningham was perfect because, he was from that world. He had gone to prison, over exotic animals. And so he was basically a great undercover agent. So Eric Goode makes him a proxy director on this film, and Dwayne befriends Tanya. And that's where, to me, it's murky because, even Eric talked to another journalist, I can't remember his name, but in the film talks to another journalist, about, what is ethical. And I do feel like, as a documentarian, Eric did cross the line by not being upfront about what he was doing. Now, is it a means to an end? Because if you believe something bad is happening and the only way to, get to the truth of it is by being deceitful. I mean, there's definitely an argument to be made for that. But I do feel like Dwayne, I don't know. I just feel like, you always see this in movies, right? Anytime you watch movies where they have undercover agents, right? And even like think about Point Blank, Bodhi, Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze, Keanu comes into it really like, I want to bust the bad guys, but then he ends up realizing how cool they are. And he wants to just surf and like live the life. And he's like, these aren't bad guys. And they're just trying to steal some money so they can just like live this really good life. And like, now I don't really want to arrest them. I feel like that's where Dwayne ended up, because it's like he went into it because he loves animals and he wants to make sure animals aren't being mistreated. But then he gets in there and realizes, while Tanya is kooky, he realizes she really does love these animals. She just doesn't have the resources or ability to actually maintain exotic animals, which is why she shouldn't be. I thought there was an interesting article. I'll pull it up on Vulture did an interesting article, and Rolling Stone also did, a follow-up interview with Tanya, which we'll talk about. But in the article, let me find it if I can. Yeah, it's a Vulture article. Not sure if you can really see it, but it's called The Double Dishonesty of Chimp Crazy. It's by Jen Chaney at Vulture. And she sort of kind of, relays sort of some of the same things. So like, Goode asked in the film, do we turn her in? He asked, Peter Lawfer is the reporter, documentary, and that, he was asking these questions. He's like, or do we continue to follow the story? And Lawfer says, as journalists, we don't want to do something that's morally, ethically wrong. You have to hope that the end result is more positive than negative. Is there a greater good? And basically, what Jen talks about is like, they're going after Tanya for being this liar in the, throughout this entire situation in order to get what she wants. She wants to save Tonka. And basically, her point is kind of like, in doing that, he's doing exactly what he's saying Tanya's doing. Like Goode is lying basically to Tanya in order to get what he wants. And she says, it's Goode's job as a filmmaker to show viewers the full picture of Haddix and the ways in which the relationship with Tonka primarily functions as selfishness dressed up in selfless clothing. While Goode's treatment of Haddix is not as blatantly harmful as her treatment of Tonka, he doesn't seem to consider that he's rationalized his behaviors in ways that aren't all that different. He does not seem to see what other people see either. So I thought that was a really interesting article that Vulture did. And that's where I got was kind of at too, because what made it okay for him, to be deceitful and, Tanya not. I will say that, in the follow-up article that Tanya did, or in the follow-up interview that Tanya did with Rolling Stone. So, we find out in episode 4 that there was a Rolling Stone journalist named Cheyenne Roundtree. And she started investigating this whole Tonka situation when Alan Cumming got involved, because she's like, what is Alan Cumming, working with PETA? What is this about? And so she started investigating, and she was the one who really discovered that it was Eric Goode behind this production. And that was really how Tanya found out too. And so she did this follow-up interview, came out in Rolling Stone on September 8th. It kind of does sound like Cheyenne also has some empathy towards Tanya as well. I want to share, because when Tanya gets hit with a $225,000 invoice from PETA once Eric and his team turn over the recording to them. They've snitched her out, because on the recording, that's where she reveals that Tonka has been in the basement this entire time. He's not dead. Whatever that bag of cremated remains, which looks like, again, Duncan Hines cake mix. Look, we don't even know what I would love to know. I would love to do a DNA test or some sort of testing on those remains. I'm so curious what those remains were that she was showing. But she perjures herself in front of the judge. They turn over this information, and then PETA goes after her. U.S. Marshals show up at her door. They remove Tonka. But Cheyenne was the one that was like, yeah, do you know, who else have you told about this? And she's like, just the documentary filmmakers. And she's like, what documentary filmmakers? And Cheyenne was able to find, this person's connected to Eric Goode and all the Tiger King. And that was how she discovered it, So she gets hit with this $225,000 invoice from PETA for their lawyers' fees, basically. And some people have said, that is sort of kind of how PETA makes a lot of their money. Is like they go after these organizations, these people, and then they invoice them for these, bills that they have to pay to go after them. And so obviously Tanya's not going to have $225,000 to pay. They then sent her an offer saying, essentially, we will remove these fees. We'll take away this invoice if you agree to give up your exotic animal brokering license, which, I don't disagree with. However, I will say I don't think it's still not illegal in Missouri you can still do it. So it's kind of like she's doing it just to say, okay, turn it over. But then they also add in, she basically can't deal with animals at all. So, the zoo that she currently has, she wouldn't even be able to do that. I feel like trying to strip her of her entire livelihood when this woman is probably in her 60s. I don't know how old she is. It just feels like kind of unfair because I just don't know, what you kind of expect. Again, do I want her dealing in the exotic animal world? No, but I would rather them spend their resources kind of going after, there's still, we learn at the end of the film, there's still no federal regulations around exotic animals. So like, I want to know, like, why aren't we spending more resources towards that? And then those little entities will go away once those restrictions are in place. So it just seemed a little bit unfair. And then, of course, you have to question, like, well, why did Tanya continue to do the film, the documentary, once she found out, that the people around her were snitching? And I also felt like, Eric put her in this situation, and I know he's going to make a lot of money. I mean, this is the highest rated documentary that HBO has had, I believe, in 4 years. I believe the last time they had something this highly rated was the McMillian series that they did about the Monopoly scam. This is their highest rated documentary. So Eric's going to do very well after this. He's going to, get, I'm sure, plenty of other projects after this. And so I just felt like, you put her in this situation, maybe you should be helping her with these fees. And I also wondered, like, why was Tanya, sort of helping him? Now, when I read this Rolling Stone article, in the article, Tanya talks about, she talks about how she's gotten, obviously a lot of online hate, which, isn't surprising. She didn't really want any of this. And she believed that she was participating in a small production advocating for the private ownership of exotic animals. That's what she was led to believe, when Dwayne, the proxy director, came into her life. She said, one of the interviewer, Cheyenne, asked her, when we spoke in 2022, you were pretty upset and stunned that Dwayne Cunningham, who you thought of as a friend, was really working as a proxy director for Eric Goode, who you swore you wanted nothing to do with. Why did you continue filming with Eric and Dwayne once you realized they lied to you and turned you into PETA? She said, they made a lot of promises to me, like me getting to see my boy. They promised I'd get a visit with him, and they promised to offset some of the legal fees I have because they caused them, but I didn't trust them. After I spoke to you that day, the U.S. Marshals hit my house. I knew for a fact they were out to get a huge explosive ending so it could be another Tiger King. I decided I had two choices after they contacted me several months later, and I was not so angry. I had to beat them or join them. They promised me that they would make it out to be a love story or it could be trash, and I didn't want it to be trash. I didn't have a choice. I wanted it to be about Tonka and the reality of how much I gave up trying to save him. That's one reason. And the other, they dangled a bunch of carrots that I, at that point, was desperate for. Cheyenne asked, have they made good on those promises? She says, well, you haven't seen me get to see Tonka. So I just thought that was also, an interesting, because it did seem like they made those promises to her. Logan said, I think they did know. I think they did that knowing she couldn't pay and always planned to offer her to settle by getting out of the business. Yeah, I'm sure PETA knew that they were going to overcharge. And I'm pretty sure that's probably the MO, is like, give these big fines, put them out of business. I don't know where, you know what? If you haven't seen, there is Sarah Fraser did an interview with Tanya. It came out yesterday. It's on her YouTube channel. So I watched that yesterday, and I believe that was where I saw that Tanya had heard they were going after that guy. Remember, I think his name is Doc Antler. He was from the Tiger King. He was also in Missouri, which, again, I wouldn't mind going after a lot of these exotic animal brokers, because I do think a lot of them are not treating these animals well. I mean, one of the can I just tell you how much? I don't even know if I put them. I don't even think I put them in there. That couple, Pam and her husband, I couldn't stand them. They were the ones. Pam has been around for decades. She was the one who's had chimps sleep at the White House, and she does like this kind of traveling circus act, it seems. And she kept her chimp Chance on a leash the entire time. And when Chance was in their home, they would show him videos of chimps and he would go crazy. Chance did not look happy to me. Every time Pam and that chimp and the leash were on my screen, I was aggravated. And we find out at the end that Chance, just at 14 years old, just collapsed and died. No other reason. I don't think a lot of these chimps that are in captivity are in good shape. Now, Tanya had said, one of the running jokes obviously was how, Tanya was only feeding Tonka Happy Meals and Powerade. Tanya said that the Happy Meals that we saw on screen, she said that Eric Goode was the one that purchased the Happy Meals. And she said it was the night before they were coming to seize all the chimps, and that she said production essentially offered to go make their last day very happy and bought all these Happy Meals. She claims, they didn't show her, when she's feeding fresh fruits and vegetables. Also, that scene, where they show her basically escaping with Tonka, bringing him to the Holiday Inn to hide him before the marshals came to seize all the rest of the chimps. Even that they did recreations. Apparently that footage we saw that looked like security footage of her dragging a cage up the Holiday Inn stairs. She says that was recreation. It wasn't actual footage, which I don't know. I'm sure that makes, of course, that's going to happen in filmmaking. You're not going to be able to get all of the actual footage. And so sometimes you have to recreate things for the drama. So that didn't surprise me. But yeah, even after listening to Tanya's interview with Sarah Fraser, I think that she did a lot of things wrong. And she was very remorseful about perjuring herself, lying to the judge. She said, that's her one regret. She said she absolutely regrets lying to the judge. But she also said she acted like she kind of underestimated PETA. She didn't think they would kind of go after her kind of as hard as they did. Because it did seem like, they kind of got their way on certain things, but even once they got their way, they kind of continue to come after her. Because even now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, let me pull up this article. It looks like PETA is still wanting to shut down her zoo. This article is from September 6th. Tonia Haddix operates Sunrise Beach Safari near the Lake of Ozarks, but PETA is pushing for Haddix to be charged with perjury and obstruction of justice, and for her license to be revoked after Haddix was shown to be lying to the judge. So they're still, so they're still wanting to come after her for the perjury. And again, I'm sure they would say, we won't charge you with perjury if you shut down your facility. But not only does Tanya not want to shut down her facility, she wants to buy an island. I don't know if I put in I don't think I put in a picture of the island, but and trigger warning, I'm about to show some pretty gruesome stuff. But at the end of the documentary, after all of this, you can't think it gets any crazier. First of all, we heard two crazy things in this. Well, we heard multiple crazy things in the finale episode. But one of the craziest things I think that came out of the finale, and which is, I think, what a lot of people are like, some of these people need to, there's a mental illness there. There's a sickness there, because what is your need? What is your obsession? Because we find out that Sandy Harold, so Sandy Harold is the woman who owned Travis the chimp. Travis the chimp is the one who mauled Darla. What is her name? Sorry, Charla Nash is her name. So Charla Nash was Sandy Harold's friend, had her entire face ripped off. We find out, after all that she went through, her friend being mauled, obviously she was basically shunned by the community. Her entire life was destroyed. She was depressed, because then her husband had passed away at some point. She lost everyone in her life. She was depressed. She didn't know what to do. And obviously Travis was dead. We find out through Pam, the woman who keeps the chimp on the leash, Sandy starts visiting her chimps because she misses the chimps so much. She's visiting their chimps. And eventually she finds out there's this chimp that needs to be rehomed. And her and Pam, she's like, well, do you want to go partners on it? End up purchasing this chimp for $33,000. The chimp can't live with Sandy, obviously, because she's been banned from having any, animals. So she's like sneaking to see the chimp. The chimp is sneaking up there to, I think she was in Connecticut to see her because they have pictures in her kitchen. So the fact that this woman destroyed everyone's life around her basically and still had to buy a chimp in the end before she died, that's insane. That's insane behavior. Sandy eventually passed away of like an aortic aneurysm. Pam said it was a broken heart. But just the fact up until the very end, you know, that she wanted to have chimps is a little mentally unstable. And obviously people felt that way kind of towards the end of Chimp Crazy because, again, trigger warning, I'm going to show some gruesome injuries. When Tanya reveals at the end of the episode that she had gone to visit her friend and got in the cage with her friend's chimp, comes out, her finger has been bitten, her ear, she said it was a nibble, her ear is bitten clean off, most of it. And even after those injuries, she says she still wants to own chimps. She said she wants to sell her zoo and buy this island and call it something like Tonka Island and live amongst the chimps on this island. Again, she makes for great reality TV. She owes PETA $225,000. I don't think she's buying an island. But like, again, I do think that other people kind of put her in the situation. And I do think they need to be kind of held responsible for some of it. Because again, it was legal for her because there are no regulations. It was legal for her to have these chimps. That's the crux of the problem. It shouldn't have ever been legal for her to own these chimps, but she did, and sort of like going after her after the fact just seems I don't know, there was like some unfairness in there. Now, in like some good news, I will say, you know, people obviously want to know how Tonka's doing because when you watch the documentary, it's hard to tell. He doesn't seem happy. Like you can't really tell the look on his face if he's happy, if he's not. You know, again, all he has known is humans. So like, you know, I imagine while the sanctuary looks gorgeous and it's like a dream place that you hope all chimps can live happy and free, you also just like wonder if he's happy. But you know, LA Times did do a follow-up on like Tonkas Life now after Chimp Crazy. And, you know, this was done by Amy Kaufman of the LA Times. And they basically say it's been over 2 years since Tonka arrived at Save the Chimps. It's a 150-acre parcel of protected land where 222 apes born in captivity come to live out their retirement. And they basically say that Tonka has adapted well to living with his own kind. When the chimps first get there, they may be drawn to humans first, but given the opportunity to live among others like themselves, they continuously prefer to end up being around other chimpanzees. They say when he arrived, Tonka was put into quarantine for 60 days. And he had not shown much interest in getting involved in the rankings of the family group, but he has developed deep friendships with two other chimps, Jake and Caleb, and they found out that Caleb was actually Tonka's biological son. And so, and they said they did try to set up, you know, a little kind of area, a private area for him. This is a video of him running with Jacob at the sanctuary. They say that they say he's doing well. It said it didn't take much for Tonka to lose the extra weight. They put him on a diet of fruit and vegetables. He could live into his 60s. And that, you know, he wanted to be outside. So they were just saying that was kind of proof that Tanya was wrong, because they're saying even though they kind of gave him an inside space to be in, that he went outside and he wanted to be outside. So, you know, again, I think that I don't necessarily agree with PETA's tactics, and I don't necessarily agree with, you know, how they go about a lot of things. I think PETA, like any organization, started out with a really good mission, right? I think anytime you start with the mission, it's for good purposes. I do believe that when money, I think they have a lot of money behind them and a lot of donations and donors. And sometimes when you get money behind you, it sort of changes your mission plan. And so even, you could be doing like a lot of good things, but you could also not be doing, I know people, I'm not even going to talk about it because people just talk about sort of like the adoption rates of PETA and those sorts of things. I haven't looked into it, so I can't speak on it. But I do know that anytime an organization has a lot of money, they can do a lot of good, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the ultimate good guy. And I kind of just wish PETA had sort of just been more willing to work with Tanya, and again, not about giving Tonka back to her, but more about like how do we create legislation so that other people don't end up in your situation and we can prevent this. And also, how do we take care of the chimps that are already have been in captivity and make sure that they're happy as well, without kind of uprooting and destroying more people's lives. I guess I would love to know also, just like, it would be nice to know like how many people currently still have chimpanzees in captivity. Is it a lot? Are PETA going after them? I know that because it was such a successful docuseries, I imagine that HBO Max would love to do additional episodes. And again, I think Tanya brought it up in her interview with Sarah Fraser. And I think Tanya said that, yes, she had been reached out to. I think she said Eric reached out to her about possibly doing like a 5th episode. She said she left him on red. So I don't know. But I will say, if they were willing to do a 5th episode, and if Tanya was, able to be compensated so that she could pay down some of these fees, I think it would be worth it. I do think that Tanya needs to get some self-awareness. She's not going to get Tonka back. She doesn't need to have Tonka back. She doesn't have the ability to take care of Tonka, and people shouldn't have exotic animals. Do I think that she should be allowed to visit him? I kind of do. I do feel like she really, truly does love animals. I mean, they talked about this in the film. She was a foster mom for several years. I think there is this need for her to take care of stuff, which again, that could be something more deep rooted, which maybe she does need to talk to someone about. I don't think that she needs to own more monkeys. But I would be curious, like, is her, what is her zoo? Is it just a petting zoo, and is it well kept up? Is it, when people go there, does it make kids happy? Does it not feel like they're in captivity? Is it more like a farm versus, feeling like a zoo? I don't know. But I do, I think it's like, I think all around it's a sad situation, but I do think that Tanya was made for TV. I don't think she wants to be the star. I don't think she wants to be the reality star. I don't even think she probably gets that there's kind of like a sect out there of people who kind of like are rooting for her just because she's so wild and crazy, and like we just want to see her with her crazy lip fillers. And she does say that she doesn't go to the lip filler doctor with the backwards hat anymore. So I think she's moved on from that. But I do kind of hope we see more of Tanya. If she does spend some time in prison for perjuring, I mean, it sucks, but you did do the wrong thing, so I can't say it's not deserved. But I do think that I hope Tonka's happy. And I hope, PETA doesn't, try to keep coming after Tanya at this point. I think they've made their point. And I don't think that, she has such a spotlight on her right now. I don't think that she could do, much else. Hopefully she doesn't try to buy this island and make Chimp Island, but we'll see. Anyways, those are my thoughts on the Chimp Crazy of it all. Again, make sure you're subscribed. I'll probably do, some updates. There's like a lot to talk about this week, a lot of news that came out. So maybe we'll do a quick update of all the news and entertainment gossip that's come out in our next live. Thanks for joining. I will see you guys later.